The Galactic Assembly was very old. It had existed for 12,000 years. More than 400 different alien species were part of it. They came from 9 different parts of the galaxy. Some were tall. Some were small. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no bodies at all and existed only as energy. But they all agreed on one thing. They all followed one rule. The first rule was simple. No species shall harm the young of another. This rule was carved into the crystal walls of the assembly hall. Every new species learned this rule on their first day. Wars could happen. Planets could burn. Entire civilizations could fall. But children were sacred. Children were protected. Always. For 12,000 years, no one had broken this rule. Until now, the Vethrani Empire was powerful. They controlled 800 worlds. Their ships were the largest in the galaxy. Their weapons were the strongest. And they believed they were better than everyone else. When their war fleet came to the human colony called New Bizon, they did not care about the first rule. The colony was small. Only 80,000 humans lived there. Many of them were families. Many of them were children. The Vethrani ships filled the sky like a dark cloud. Then they opened fire. The bombing lasted 6 hours. Buildings fell. Streets burned. People ran and screamed and died. When it was over, 80,000 humans were dead. 19,000 of them were children. The galaxy was shocked. But not everyone was surprised. 3 days later, a human woman stood in the Galactic Assembly. Her name was Yuna. She was the ambassador for the United Earth Coalition. She was not very tall. Most of the alien delegates were bigger than her. But she stood straight and did not look afraid. Her black hair was tied back. Her eyes were red from crying, but no tears fell now. She had cried enough. Now it was time to speak. The assembly hall was huge. Thousands of aliens sat in floating seats that went up and up toward the ceiling. All of them were looking at her. The small human woman who had lost so many of her people. Yuna took a breath and spoke. "We come to this assembly to ask for justice," she said. Her voice was calm. 3 days ago, the Vethrani Empire attacked our colony. They killed 80,000 of our people. 19,000 of them were children. We asked the assembly to punish the Vethrani for breaking the first rule. The hall was quiet for a moment. Then a sound came from the Vethrani section. It was a clicking noise. The Vethrani high speaker was laughing. The high speaker was tall and looked like a giant insect. It had a hard shell that shined in the light. It had many legs and 2 large arms. Its face had big eyes and sharp parts that moved when it talked. "The human does not understand," the high speaker said. Its voice was cold and cruel. "The first rule protects civilized species. Humans have only been in space for 300 years. You are babies. You are not recognized by this assembly. The first rule does not apply to you." Yuna felt her heart grow cold. She looked around the hall. She looked at the 400 species who could help her. Who could punish the Vethrani? Who could give her people justice? No one spoke. No one stood up. Many looked away. They did not want to fight the powerful Vethrani Empire. Not for humans. Not for a species that was still so new to the stars. Yuna understood. She was alone. "I see," she said slowly. She looked down at the small computer in her hands. Then she looked back up at the assembly. "Then we will respond as the uncivilized species you believe us to be." She turned and walked toward the door. Her footsteps were the only sound in the huge hall. Behind her, the Vethrani high speaker made a dismissive gesture. "Let them respond," it said. "What can one baby species do against an empire of 800 worlds? They are nothing. They are weak. They will cry, and then they will accept their place." Many delegates nodded. The Vethrani were probably right. Humans were new. Humans were small. What could they possibly do? But one delegate did not nod. His name was Toma. He was from the Hashari Collective. He was very old. His species looked like giant turtles. They lived for hundreds of years and remembered everything. Toma had watched 17 civilizations rise and fall. He had seen species appear from nothing and become powerful. He had seen powerful empires destroyed in a single generation. He knew that size and age meant nothing. What mattered was will. What mattered was determination. And what mattered most was what a species would do. When it had nothing left to lose, Toma turned to his assistant, a younger Hashari named Bora. "Tell our fleet to move to defensive positions along our border," Toma said quietly. Bora looked confused. "Elder, the humans are no threat to us. We did not attack them. We did nothing wrong." "I know," Toma said, "but I want our borders protected anyway." "Why? What do you think will happen?" Toma was quiet for a moment. He thought about everything he knew about humans. He had studied their history, their wars, the terrible things they did to each other, and the amazing things they could do when they worked together. "The humans just lost 19,000 children," Toma said slowly. "I do not know what they will do, but I know one thing for certain." "What is that, Elder?" Toma looked at the door where Yuna had disappeared. Then he looked at the Vethrani High Speaker, who was still laughing with its delegates. "The Vethrani have made a terrible mistake," Toma said, "and I fear the whole galaxy will pay for it." The hall continued to buzz with conversation. Most delegates had already forgotten about the humans. They talked about trade agreements and border disputes. Normal things. Boring things. None of them knew that everything was about to change. None of them knew that the small species called humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. On her ship, flying away from the assembly, Yuna sat alone in her room. She looked at pictures on her computer. Pictures of New Bizen before the attack. Children playing in parks. Families eating together. Schools full of laughing students. All gone now. All dead. Yuna closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had changed. The sadness was still there. But now there was something else too. Something hard. Something cold. Something dangerous. She opened a communication channel to Earth. "This is Ambassador Yuna," she said. "The Assembly has refused to help us. They say we are not civilized enough for protection." She paused. "I recommend we show them exactly how uncivilized we can be." 3 months passed after New Bizen. The galaxy expected humans to do nothing. They expected humans to cry and mourn and eventually accept what had happened. They were wrong. The first Vethrani supply ship disappeared without a warning. It was carrying food and weapons to a military base. One moment it was flying through space. The next moment it was gone. No distress signal. No explosion. Just gone. The Vethrani were confused but not worried. Ships sometimes had accidents. These things happened, then another supply ship disappeared. And another. And another. Then a patrol fleet of 40 warships stopped responding to communications. The Vethrani sent search ships to find them. They found nothing but broken metal floating in the darkness of space. Now the Vethrani were worried. Admiral Doan stood on the bridge of his ship. The ship was called the Indomitable. It was the flagship of the new United Earth Expeditionary Force. This fleet had been built in secret over the past 3 months. Every ship was filled with humans who had one thing in common. They were all very, very angry. Dohan was 63 years old. He had gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 30 years ago. He had fought in the Belt Wars 20 years ago. He had thought his fighting days were finished. He had been looking forward to a quiet retirement on Earth with his grandchildren. Then New Bizen happened. Duhan had watched the footage. He had seen the Vethrani ships fill the sky. He had seen the bombs fall. He had seen the bodies in the streets. Small bodies. Children's bodies. His hands had shaken with rage. His heart had burned with a fire he thought had gone out long ago. The next day, he had put on his uniform and reported for duty. "Status report," Dohun said now, his voice calm and steady. Commander Jiwon stood beside him. She was his second in command. She was young, only 35, but she was smart and tough. She had lost her sister on New Busan. Pulled up a map on the big screen. It showed the positions of Vethrani ships throughout the galaxy. "The Vethrani 7th Fleet is waiting at the Castor Relay," she said. 200 capital ships. They are in a defensive formation. They expect us to come to them for a big battle. Dawn smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "That is their mistake," he said. "They think we will fight like they do. Big ships in neat lines. Honorable combat. Fair rules." He pulled up another display. This one showed 300 smaller ships scattered across Vethrani. Space, frigates, destroyers, old. Cargo ships that have been fitted with weapons. Small, fast, hard to catch. "They burned our children while they slept," Dohun continued. "There will be no honor in this war. There will be no rules. There will be no mercy. We will show them what happens when you wake a sleeping species and leave it nothing left to lose." The Vethrani had 800 worlds and thousands of ships. Humanity had rage. And that was enough. On a small moon near one of the Vethrani colony worlds, a young woman named Minji finished her work. She was an engineer. She was 24 years old. She had been one of the smartest students at her university. Her younger brother Tan had been 12 years old. He had been visiting their grandmother on New Busan when the Vethrani came. Minji never saw him again. She never even found his body. Now she used her smart brain for a different purpose. The Vethrani needed special air to breathe. Their atmosphere processors made this air. Without these machines, they would suffocate. And Minji had found a way to break these machines. She showed her plan to her team. Lieutenant Hannah looked at the screen with wide eyes. "If we put this chemical into the processors here, and here," Minji explained, pointing at the map, "the whole hemisphere will lose breathable air within 6 hours." Hannah was quiet for a moment. "Millions of Vethrani will die," she said softly. "Yes," Minji said. Her voice did not shake. "Minji, I understand you are hurt. We all are. But this is what?" Minji turned to look at Hannah. Her eyes were hard. "Too much? Too cruel? Too uncivilized?" She stepped closer to Hannah. "Tell me, how many children died on New Busan?" Hannah looked down. 19,412. 19,412 children, Minji repeated slowly. "My brother was one of them. He was scared of the dark. He liked to draw pictures of spaceships. He wanted to be a pilot someday." Her voice cracked, but only for a moment. Then it became hard again. The Vethrani did not care about him. They did not care about any of them. They laughed when we asked for justice. They called us uncivilized. She turned back to the screen. "So let us be uncivilized. Let them understand what that means." No one argued with her. The next week, 3 Vethrani worlds lost their atmosphere processors. 17 million Vethrani died before emergency ships could arrive with breathing equipment. The Vethrani High Council was shocked. This was not how wars were supposed to work. Where were the big fleet battles? Where were the formal declarations? Where were the rules? Humans did not care about their rules. On Earth, the people watched the news with mixed feelings. Some cheered every Vethrani death. They remembered New Busan. They wanted revenge. Others were not so sure. A young man named Wanjin watched the reports of dying Vethrani and felt sick. He had lost his cousin on New Bizin. He wanted justice. But was this justice? Or was this something else? Are we becoming monsters? He asked his father. His father was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was sad. The Vethrani created these monsters, he said. They killed our children and laughed. They told us we were nothing. They gave us no choice. But we always have a choice, Wanjin said. His father shook his head. Sometimes the only choices are bad ones. Sometimes you can only choose what kind of monster to become. He looked at the screen, where Vethrani ships burned in the darkness of space. I hope that when this is over, we can find our way back to being human. But right now, humanity needs monsters. And monsters we shall be. Far away, Admiral Doan received reports of their successes. Supply lines destroyed. Factories sabotaged. Communications scrambled. The Vethrani Empire was still huge and powerful, but it was bleeding. Small cuts, but many of them. Death by 1,000 cuts. That was the human strategy. G1 came to him with the latest report. We lost the cruiser Gyeongju, she said. 40 crew members. The Vethrani caught them near the Kesef system. Dohan closed his eyes for a moment. 40 more humans dead. 40 more families who would receive bad news. Their sacrifice will be remembered, he said quietly. When this is over, we will build monuments to every single person we lost. Sir, Jiwon hesitated. Do you think we can win this war? They have so many more ships than us. So many more soldiers. Doan looked at her. Let me ask you something, Commander. What do you think about before you go to sleep at night? Jiwon did not hesitate. New Bizan, the children. What the Vethrani did. And that feeling, does it make you want to give up? Or does it make you want to keep fighting? It makes me want to fight until my last breath. Doan nodded. That is why we will win. Every human in this fleet feels the same. Every human on Earth feels the same. The Vethrani are fighting for territory and power. We are fighting because they hurt our children. And there is nothing in this universe more dangerous than a species protecting its young. He turned back to the tactical display. Send. Orders to the 5th Strike Group. There. Next target is the Vethrani Fuel Depot at Nexus Station. And Commander? Yes, Admiral? Tell them to leave no survivors. Let the Vethrani learn to fear the dark. The Galactic Assembly had seen many wars in 12,000 years. They had seen planets burn. They had seen entire species disappear. They had seen things that would give nightmares to most beings. But they had never seen anything like the Human Vethrani War. 6 months had passed since the war began. In that time, humanity had not won a single big battle. They had lost over 100 ships. Tens of thousands of human soldiers had died. By all normal measurements, they were losing badly. And yet, the Vethrani Empire was falling apart. They do not fight like a proper species. The Vethrani High Speaker screamed at the Galactic Assembly. Its voice echoed through the great hall. Its body shook with anger. They attack supply ships. They poison our air. They hack our computers and turn our own machines against us. They hide in shadows and strike when we are not looking. They fight like vermin, like insects, like cowards. Elder Toma of the Hishari Collective watched from his seat. His old turtle-like face showed no emotion, but inside he was thinking very hard. You called them uncivilized, Toma said calmly. Perhaps you are now learning what that word truly means. The High Speaker turned its big eyes toward Toma. You dare mock us? The mighty Vethrani Empire? I do not mock you, Toma said. I simply observe. You broke the first rule. You killed their children. You told them they were not worthy of protection. And now you are surprised that they fight without rules? The high speaker made an angry clicking sound. We demand the assembly stop them. These tactics are barbaric. They are wrong. The assembly must condemn them. A new voice spoke. It belonged to a human woman. Her name was Sujin. She was the new ambassador for the United Earth Coalition. She had replaced Yuna, who had returned to Earth to help lead the war. Sujin was younger than Yuna. She was 30 years old. She had sharp eyes and a smile that never looked warm. When she smiled, it looked like a predator showing its teeth. The Vathrani Empire wishes to ask for assembly protection? Sujin said. Her voice was soft but dangerous. How interesting. When we asked for protection after New Bizin, you told us we were not civilized enough. Has something changed? This is different, the high speaker said quickly. You are using forbidden tactics. You are targeting civilians. You are breaking the rules of war. What rules? Sujin stepped forward. The smile was gone now. Her face was cold. You taught us there are no rules. You showed us that when you bombed sleeping children. You proved it when you laughed at our dead. She looked around the assembly hall. Thousands of aliens watched her. Many of them looked uncomfortable. They remembered how they had done nothing to help the humans. They remembered their silence. Every species here knows the first rule, Sujin continued. Every species here knows what the Vathrani did. And every species here chose to do nothing when we asked for help. The hall was very quiet. Humanity no longer asks for your help, Sujin said. We no longer want your protection or your approval. We simply want you to watch. Watch what happens when you ignore the first rule. Watch what happens when you harm our young, and think there will be no consequences. She smiled again. That cold, dangerous smile. And remember this well, because someday it might be your children. She turned and walked away, leaving the hall in stunned silence. Far from the assembly, Captain Yunji sat in her small ship. The ship was called the Retribution. It used to be a cargo ship that carried food and supplies. Now it carried weapons and soldiers. Yunji was 40 years old. She had been a civilian ship captain before the war. She had transported goods between colonies. It was boring but safe work. Then New Bizin happened. Her daughter Mina had been visiting friends there. Mina was 9 years old. She liked to sing songs and play with her toy animals. Yunji never found her body. Now Yunji flew a warship. Her crew was 47 humans. All of them had lost someone on New Bizin. All of them wanted revenge. Her first officer was named Junho. He was a serious young man who rarely smiled. He came to her with new orders from command. Captain, he said quietly, our next target has been selected. He showed her the information on his tablet. Yunji read it slowly. Her face became pale. HFY, she said. The Vathrani breeding world. Yes, Captain. It is where they raise their young. Millions of larvae are in nursery buildings there. Yunji felt something twist in her stomach. Larvae. Baby Vathrani. Children. Command wants us to attack a nursery world, she said slowly. Yes, Captain. The Vathrani have refused to surrender. They believe we will never harm their young because no species has ever broken the first rule. Command believes we need to prove them wrong. Yunji was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her daughter Mina. She thought about the nurseries on New Bizin, the schools, the playgrounds. All turned to ash. She thought about what kind of person she was. What kind of person she wanted to be, and what kind of person she might have to become. Set course for HFY, she said finally. Junho nodded, but he hesitated. Captain, if I may ask, when we arrive, what are your orders? Yunji looked at the star map, at the small dot that was HFY. millions of young Vethrani, innocent, unable to fight back, just like the children of New Bizin had been. "When we arrive," she said slowly, "we will transmit a warning. We will give them 12 hours to evacuate all young from the planet. Captain?" Junho looked surprised. "The Vethrani gave New Bizin no warning." "I know what they did," Yunji said. Her voice was hard. "But we are not them. We will give them the chance they never gave us. And if they refuse to evacuate?" Yunji did not answer. She did not need to. Back in the Galactic Assembly, Elder Toma called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 30 different species attended. All of them were worried. "The humans are moving toward Keseth 4, Toma explained. "It is a Vethrani nursery world. Surely they would not actually attack it," said the representative from the Valori Union. "The first rule has protected young for 12,000 years. No species has ever broken it." "The humans believe the first rule was already broken," Toma said. "At New Bizin." "That was different," another representative said. "The humans were not recognized as civilized. The rule did not technically apply." Toma made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was not a happy sound. "Do you think the humans care about technicalities?" he asked. "Their children are dead. They asked for justice and were denied. They were told their young did not matter because they were not civilized enough." He looked around the room at the worried faces. "The humans are about to show the galaxy exactly how uncivilized they can be. And I fear that once they start down this path, there will be no turning back. For any of us, what should we do?" asked the Valori representative. "Pray," Toma said simply. "Pray that the Vethrani surrender before it is too late. Because if the humans destroy that nursery world, the first rule will mean nothing anymore. And then no young in the galaxy will ever truly be safe again." On her ship, Yunji looked at the stars through her window. Somewhere out there, millions of Vethrani children waited. They did not know what was coming. They did not know that their empire had killed human children and awakened something terrible. She thought about Mina again. Her smile. Her laugh. The way she would run to hug Yunji whenever she came home from a long trip. "I miss you, baby," Yunji whispered to the stars. "I miss you so much." Then she closed her eyes and hardened her heart. There was work to do. Captain Yunji stood on the bridge of the Retribution as her ship came out of faster-than-light travel. Through the windows, she could see Keseth 4. It was a green and blue world, covered with forests and oceans. Beautiful, peaceful, full of children. "We have arrived, Captain," Junho said. "Vethrani Defense Fleet is small. Only 20 ships. They were not expecting an attack here." Yunji nodded slowly. "Open a communication channel. Wide broadcast. I want every ship in this system to hear this." "Channel open, Captain." Yunji took a deep breath. This was the moment. The moment that would change everything. "This is Captain Unji of the United Earth Expeditionary Force," she said. Her voice was strong and clear. "I am speaking to the Vethrani garrison on Keseth 4. You have 12 hours to evacuate all non-combatants from this planet. All young, all civilians. Take them and leave." She paused. "If you refuse to evacuate, we will demonstrate exactly what happens when you harm human children. You have 12 hours. Use them wisely." She cut the channel. Judr Joe looked at her with concern. "Captain, do you really think they will evacuate?" "No," Yunji admitted. "They think we are bluffing. They believe no species would ever attack a nursery world. The first rule has held for 12,000 years. They cannot imagine that we would break it." "Would we break it, Captain?" Yunji did not answer. She was not sure she knew the answer herself. The hours passed slowly. On Keseth 4, the Vethrani High Commander received the human message. He laughed when he heard it, They think they can scare us, he told his officers. Foolish humans. No species has ever broken the first rule. They would become outcasts. Every civilization in the galaxy would turn against them. Should we evacuate the nurseries, just in case? One officer asked nervously. No, the High Commander said firmly. If we evacuate, we show fear. We show weakness. The humans are bluffing. They must be. No one would actually harm Young. In the Galactic Assembly, panic was spreading. Species that had ignored humanity for months were now desperate to help. The Hishari offered to negotiate. The Torvan Collective said they would pay whatever reparations were needed. The Valori Union begged the Vethrani to surrender. The Vethrani High Speaker stood firm. They are bluffing, it repeated again and again. They must be bluffing. No species would actually do it. It is unthinkable. Elder Toma watched the countdown timer. Only 3 hours remained. 300 years ago, Toma said slowly, the humans fought a war among themselves. Near the end of this war, one group dropped weapons that split atoms. They dropped these weapons on cities. Cities full of civilians, full of children. The assembly hall became very quiet. Hundreds of thousands died in seconds, Toma continued. Then, a few days later, they did it again. Another city. Another 100,000 dead. He turned his ancient eyes to the Vethrani High Speaker. That was when they were fighting their own species. Their own brothers and sisters. You are not their brothers and sisters. You are the creatures who killed their children and laughed about it. He shook his head slowly. You are betting the lives of millions of your young that the humans will not respond in kind. I have lived for 800 years. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. And I tell you now, with all certainty, you do not understand what you have awakened. The High Speaker's mandibles clicked nervously. For the first time, doubt showed in its eyes. They would not, it said. But its voice was not so confident now. Would they not? Toma asked. You told them they were uncivilized. You told them their children did not matter. You gave them nothing to lose. And you expect them to follow rules that you already broke? The timer showed 2 hours remaining. On the Retribution, Captain Unji watched the clock. Her finger hovered near the firing command. Her weapons were ready. Her crew was silent. Everyone was waiting. Incoming transmission, Junho said. From the Vethrani homeworld. Put it on screen. The Vethrani High Speaker appeared. For the first time, it looked scared. Human Captain, it said. This action you are considering, it would change everything. You would become enemies of every civilized species. You would be outcasts forever. We were already outcasts, Yunji replied calmly. You made sure of that when you called us uncivilized. When you refused to protect our children. Please, the High Speaker said. The words seemed to hurt it. There must be another way. We can negotiate. We can discuss reparations. We tried to negotiate. We stood before the assembly and asked for justice. You laughed at us. That was a mistake. I admit it was a mistake. Yes, Yunji agreed. It was. The question is whether you will continue to make mistakes. She leaned forward. Surrender. Now, admit before the Galactic Assembly that you broke the first rule when you attacked New. Bizin, agree to full reparations for every human life lost. Do this and your young will be safe. And if we refuse? Yunji's eyes were cold. Then in 1 hour, you will learn exactly how uncivilized we can be. The transmission ended. The Vethrani High Speaker turned to the assembly. Its body was shaking. Its mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme fear. They mean it, it whispered. They actually mean it. Then surrender, Elder Toma said firmly. Before it is too late. But the shame, our empire would be disgraced. Your empire attacked sleeping children, Thomas said. You have no honor left to lose, but you still have young to protect. Choose wisely. On Kesseth IV, the Vethrani High Commander received new orders from the homeworld. His face showed shock as he read them. Evacuate? He said. They want us to evacuate the nurseries? The High Speaker believes the humans are serious, his officer explained. The High Commander looked at the countdown timer. 45 minutes remained. Even if he started now, he could not evacuate all the nurseries in time. There were millions of larvae. Moving them would take days, not minutes. We should have started earlier, he whispered. We should have listened. On the Retribution, Yunji watched the Vethrani ships begin to move. They were trying to evacuate. Too late and too slow, but they were trying. Captain, Junho said quietly, the Vethrani are attempting evacuation, but they cannot complete it in time. When the timer reaches 0, millions of young will still be on the planet. Yunji nodded. She had expected this. She had planned for it. Open a channel to the Galactic Assembly, she said. Channel open. Yunji looked at the camera. She knew that thousands of alien species were watching. She knew that this moment would be remembered forever. This is Captain Unji of the United Earth Expeditionary Force, she said. The Vethrani have begun evacuating Kesseth IV. However, they started too late. Millions of their young remain on the planet. The timer will reach 0 before they can complete the evacuation. She paused. I want the galaxy to understand something. Humanity did not want this war. We did not want to become what we have become. But the Vethrani gave us no choice. They killed our children. They laughed at our pain. They told us we were not worthy of protection. Her voice hardened. So now we will show the galaxy what we are capable of. Not because we want to, but because we must. Because this can never happen again. Because every species must understand that human children are sacred. And those who harm them will pay the price. The timer showed 30 minutes. The Vethrani Empire has 30 minutes to transmit a formal surrender to the Galactic Assembly. Full acknowledgement of their crimes. Full reparations. Full accountability. She leaned forward. If they do not surrender in 30 minutes, I will prove that humanity is exactly what they called us. Uncivilized, barbaric, willing to do what no other species in 12,000 years has been willing to do. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Choose wisely. The Galactic Assembly exploded into chaos. Delegates screamed and shouted. Some begged the Vethrani to surrender. Others condemned the humans as monsters. A few sat in silent shock, unable to believe what was happening. The Vethrani High Speaker stood frozen, its mind unable to process the situation. Surrender meant disgrace. But refusing to surrender meant the timer showed 25 minutes. Surrender, Elder Thomas said firmly. Do it now, before you lose everything. The High Speaker looked at the old Heshari. Then it looked at the timer. Then it looked at the image of Kesseth IV, where millions of its species young waited, not knowing that their lives depended on a decision made in the next few minutes. 20 minutes. The High Speaker closed its eyes and began to speak. The timer showed 15 minutes when the Vethrani High Speaker began to speak. Its voice was quiet, defeated, broken. The Vethrani Empire surrenders. The words seemed to hurt as they came out. The High Speaker's mandibles trembled. Its body sagged. In 12,000 years of galactic history, no great empire had ever fallen so fast or so completely. We acknowledge that we violated the first rule. When we attacked the human colony of New Bizin, we accept responsibility for the deaths of 80,000 humans, including 19,412 children. The assembly hall was completely silent. Every delegate watched in shock. Some with satisfaction, some with fear, some with a strange mixture of both. We agree to full reparations. Whatever the humans demand, we will pay it. We will do whatever is necessary to end this war. The High Speaker looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting to Captain Yunji's ship. Please, it said. The word was barely a whisper. Please spare our young. On the retribution, Captain Yunji watched the surrender message. Her hand was still near the firing command. Her weapons were still ready. Millions of Vethrani young were still on Keseth 4. Captain, Junho said quietly. They surrendered. It is over. Yunji did not move. Her eyes were fixed on the screen. On the image of the planet below, on the nurseries full of children who did not know how close they had come to death. She thought about her daughter Mina, about the last time she had seen her. Mina had been excited about her trip to New Bizen. She had talked about all the things she wanted to see and do. She had hugged Yunji tight and said she loved her. That was the last time. Yunji felt tears on her cheeks. She had not cried since New Bizen. She had locked away her grief and turned it into rage. But now, finally, the rage was fading, and the grief came flooding back. Captain? Junho asked with concern. Are you all right? Yunji wiped her eyes. Stand down weapons, she ordered. Inform the Galactic Assembly that we accept the Vethrani surrender. All human forces will withdraw from Vethrani space. She looked at the planet one last time, at the millions of children who would live because she had chosen not to become a monster. We are not them, she said quietly. We were never them. We just needed them to believe we could be. 3 days later, Ambassador Sujin stood before the Galactic Assembly once more. The hall was full. Every species was watching. This was a moment that would be remembered forever. Humanity had won. The Vethrani Empire had accepted all terms. They would pay reparations for centuries. They would acknowledge their crimes in every public record. They would teach their children about New Bizen and what they had done wrong. And most importantly, they would never again believe that any species was too weak or too young to deserve protection. Sujin looked around the chamber at the 400 species who had once ignored humanity 6 months ago. I stood before this assembly and told you to watch, she said. Watch what happens when you ignore the first rule. Watch what happens when you harm human children. She paused. You watched. And now you understand. She took a step forward. Humanity did not want this war. We did not want to become what we became. We asked for justice through proper channels. We asked for help. We asked for protection. And we were told we were not civilized enough to deserve it. Our voice grew stronger. So we proved that civilization is not about how long you have been in space. It is not about how many worlds you control or how big your ships are. Civilization is about protecting the innocent, protecting the weak, protecting children. She looked directly at the Vethrani High Speaker, who sat in shame and silence. The Vethrani forgot this. They thought power meant they could do anything without consequences. They were wrong. Sujin turned back to the full assembly. Humanity will now take its place as a full member of this assembly. We will follow the rules. We will be peaceful and cooperative. We will work with all species for the good of the galaxy. Her voice dropped to something cold and hard. But know this, if anyone ever harms our children again, if anyone ever ignores the first rule when it comes to human young, we will not stop at the edge. We will not give warnings. We will not offer chances to surrender. The hall was completely silent. We will end you. Completely. Absolutely. Without mercy or hesitation. She smiled. It was the most terrifying smile the galaxy had ever seen. The first rule exists for a reason. Humanity learned that reason the hard way on New Bizen. We will ensure no one ever forgets it again. She stepped back from the podium. Thank you for your attention. May we never have to meet under such circumstances again. She walked out of the hall. The silence followed her. Elder Toma watched the human ambassador leave. His aide, Bora, stood beside him. It is over, Bora said. The war is finished. The humans have won. Yes, Toma said slowly. But I wonder what kind of victory this truly is. What do you mean, Elder? Toma thought carefully before answering. The humans came to the edge of doing something terrible. They aimed weapons at children and gave an ultimatum. They were willing to become the very thing they hated. But they did not do it, Bora pointed out. They stopped. They accepted to surrender. Yes, this time. Toma shook his head. But now every species in the galaxy knows that humans were willing to go that far. That changes things. Forever. He stood slowly, his old joints making popping sounds. The Vethrani ignored the first rule. Humanity reminded the galaxy why it exists. Not because of morality, not because of kindness, but because of survival. Survival? Any species willing to harm the children of another has shown it has no limits, Toma explained. And any species with no limits is too dangerous to allow to exist. That is the true meaning of the first rule. It is not just about protecting the innocent. It is about identifying the threats. He began walking toward the exit. The Vethrani showed they had no limits when they attacked New Bizen. The humans showed they would go to any length to respond. Both species demonstrated something dangerous. But the humans showed mercy in the end, Bora said. Yes, and that is what makes them different from the Vethrani. The Vethrani had power and no conscience. The humans have power, rage, and just enough conscience. To stop before it is too late. Toma reached the door and turned back for one last look at the empty space where Sujin had stood. That combination makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And also, perhaps, the most noble. Should we fear them, Elder? Toma thought about this for a long moment. Fear them? No. Respect them? Absolutely. Threaten their children? He made a sound that was almost a laugh. Never. That is the lesson the Vethrani learned too late. And it is a lesson the galaxy will never forget. Far away, on Earth, a memorial was being built for the victims of New Bizen. 80,000 names would be carved into black stone. 19,412 of those names belonged to children. Captain Inji stood before the memorial site. Construction had just begun. Workers moved around her, carrying stone and metal. But she stood still, looking at the spot where her daughter's name would be carved. A man approached her. He was old, with gray hair and tired eyes. Admiral Dawn. Captain, he said, the Assembly has formally recognized us. The war is over. I know, Yunji said. She did not look at him. Her eyes stayed on the memorial. You did well, Dohun continued. You brought us to the edge, and then you pulled us back. That took courage. Perhaps more courage than going through with it would have taken. Inji was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. When I was aiming those weapons at Kessa 4, I thought about Mina. I thought about how scared she must have been when the bombs fell. How confused. How alone. Her voice cracked. And I thought about the Vethrani children on that planet. They were innocent too. They did not choose to attack New Bizan. They did not choose to hurt anyone. They were just children. She finally looked at Dawn. If I had killed them, I would have become exactly what the Vethrani were. A monster who kills children because it is angry. Because it wants revenge. Because it has power and no one can stop it. She shook her head. I will carry many burdens from this war, but I will not carry that one. I could not face Mina in the afterlife if I had become that person. Dawn nodded slowly. The galaxy thinks we are terrifying now. They believe we were willing to do anything. Good, Yunji said. Let them believe it. Let them fear what we might do. As long as they leave our children alone, they will never have to learn the truth. And what is the truth? Yunji looked at the memorial one last time, at the place where Mina's name would soon be carved forever. The truth is that we are just parents. Parents who love their children more than life itself. Parents who will do anything to protect them. She turned and began walking away. And there is nothing in this universe more dangerous than that. The memorial was completed 6 months later. Every year, on the anniversary of New Bizen, millions of humans gathered to remember. They spoke the names of the dead. They lit candles. They cried, and they remembered the lesson they had taught the galaxy. The first rule existed for a reason, and humanity would make sure no one ever forgot it again.